Kia ora tātou. Good morning, everybody, for our council meeting or hearings of our annual budget for 2025-26 meeting for Wednesday, the 30th of April, 2025. Before we get into our order of business, could I invite the Deputy Mayor for karakia?
Tēnā koe, your worship, o tira tēnā koutou, ngā kai kaunihira, ngā tangata I konei, tō tātou manuhiri, tō tātou mana whenua, o rangitāne, nei rā te mihi nunu I ki a koutou katoa. Ka tūwhera tō tātou hui ma te karakia, tū tawa mai I runga, tū tawa mai I raro, tū tawa mai I roto, tū tawa mai I waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. And with that karakia, it's like, let's bring the energy in, let's share, let's be respectful, and let's move forward in a positive way. Nō reira, tēnā koutou. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Deputy Mayor, thank you. All right, we'll just go to our health and safety, please. All right. Okay, the meeting is being recorded, is being live streamed on our council's YouTube channel. In terms of housekeeping, health and safety procedures, in the unlikely event of hearing an alarm, we will leave by the green signs to your nearest fire exit, and we will evacuate to the assembly area, which is the clock tower, and to Marae Hine, the square. It is a non-smoking facility or non-smoking and vaping facility. If you need to do that, it's outside the council building. Again, unlikely event of needing a defibrillator, that is located in the entranceway. Customer services, any incidences, please report them to our committee administration. Right, we have a number of people online watching, so could I just ask officers if they are asked any questions, perhaps in their first instance, if they could just say their name and title, that helps with the running of the meeting. All right, we'll look to apologies, and this is for session 1 only, and we don't have any apologies. You're all present, well done. So we'll move through to number 2, which is to extension of the meeting time, one that council resolve as per our standing orders, 2.1.7, to extend the meeting until 8 p.m. Wednesday the 30th, so that's a long day. I'm happy to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, and we will vote, please. And that's passed 15 votes for, that's not right. Okay, that's, thank you, Councillor Hapeta. We'll add you to the list. That's passed 16 votes for, none against, thank you. All right, we've got appointment of chairs for the following sessions, and we have a recommendation here. The council agrees to the chairs for the remaining sessions as followed. Our 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Is Councillor William Wood. 4 p.m. to 5:30 is Councillor Mark Arnott, and Councillor 6 to 7:30 is Councillor Pat Hancock. I'm happy to move those, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. If there's no commentary, we will vote, please. All right, we've got a few little teething problems with some of the tech, so just bear with us, but that is unanimous, 16 votes for, none against, thank you. All right, we'll move through into the hearings proper, and number 7, Te Mata Patoa, we'll come back to that after, because we've got a gallery full of people. So this is around our annual budget for 25-26 and planning and miscellaneous service fees and charges for 25-26. And we will go to our first submitter, which is Rangitane o Manawatu Settlement Trust, and we have Debbie DePooney here. Welcome, Debbie, and Georgia Larkins Tarira. Welcome.
Tēnā tātou. Just to clarify, I'm actually speaking on the co-governance model, not the annual budget this morning. Ka pai. E ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā kārangatanga maha, tēnā koutou katoa. Your Worship the Mayor, elected councillors and our Māori ward representatives who carry the voice of tangata whenua at this table, tēnei te mihi nui kia koutou. Te motua Poutua, the island of Poutua, is not simply a hill that overlooks the Manawatu River, it is a sacred pā site, a living taonga in the heart of Palmerston North. It holds the deep histories and connections of Rangitane, and the heartbeat of our people is still felt here today. The whenua was named after our rangatira Poutua, who journeyed along the awa more than 500 years ago. As he travelled, he saw this prominent peak rising above the landscape. Te motua Poutua became a stronghold, a place of protection in times of conflict, and a place of life, learning, and whanaungatanga in times of peace. For generations, Rangitane lived upon that hill. We watched over the land and the river, and the land in turn watched over us. With the development of a civic marae, cafe, event space, and a strong educational focus, this facility will breathe new life into Te motua Poutua. It will allow stories once held, long held in memory, to be seen, heard, and shared. It will be a place where our tamariki a mokopuna can learn where they came from and where everyone in Palmerston North, no matter their background, can gather with pride. On behalf of Rangitane o Manawatu Settlement Group, I am here to express our support for the preferred governance model that has been recommended, a standalone, council-controlled charitable organisation co-governed by Rangitane and Council. Why? Because true partnership cannot only be symbolic. It must live in the systems we build, it must show up in who sits at the table and how decisions are made. Co-governance is about sharing responsibility. It recognises that both iwi and local government bring unique strengths, perspectives and obligations. Rangitane brings mātauranga Māori, tikanga whakapapa, and generations of connections to this whenua. The Council brings experience in civic planning, infrastructure and community engagement. Together we can build something stronger, smarter and more enduring. This model ensures taharua, a balance between two worldviews. It enables mana whakahaere, shared authority, in a way that honours Te Tiriti o Waitangi while delivering for all communities in Palmerston North. Some may ask if this approach will take more time or investment to set up, and the answer is probably yes, it will, but anything of true value, especially at a site as sacred as Te motua Poutua, deserves that care. We are not simply building a building, we are weaving together whakapapa, community and the future. Tuia te muka tangata, we are creating a place to carry our shared story forward in mana whenua and mana taurite. Tēnei te reo Rangitane e ki ana, kia u, kia pono, kia kotahi tātou. Let us move forward together, united, respectful and bold. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Kia ora.
Ka pai, thank you, Debbie. There is some questions. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kia ora, Debbie. Thank you for that. Could you just share with us some of your views around things going well, what it might look like in 5 or 10 years' time?
So what the new entity would look like in 5 to 10 years' time?
And what the space would look like?
Okay, so I think in regards to a long-term operational model, it's been designed to be sustainable. There's a number of income streams that have been reviewed, such as, as an event, to be used as an event space, a cafe. We would hope to share the space with our wider community, of course. That's what a successful space would look like.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. You've done very well. We're way ahead of time. So, look, there's no more questions. Carolyn, nothing from you?
Nope, nothing
Okay,
from me. No.
great. All right, we appreciate your taking the time to speak to your submission. That will will come to our deliberations. So thank you for your input. Okay, councillors, we move through now to our next submitter, is the Manawatu Business Chamber, and I invite, that's number 67 in the submissions, and I invite Amanda Lindsley, their CEO, and Rahui Corbett, their chair, to the table. Other side, Amanda, yeah.
It's okay, you told me.
Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. Ko Amanda Lindsley tōku ingoa, and with me today is Rahui Corbett, who's the chair of the Manawatu Business Chamber, and also we have other board members seated up in the gallery. You may be relieved to know we don't have too much to add to our submission today, and we can genuinely see where councillors and PNCC have sharpened their pencils vis-a-vis the long-term plan and what's been presented in the annual budget, so we applaud you for that. We ask that our written submission be taken as read, and today we just want to highlight the 3 key points from our submission, which are paragraphs 4A, 7A and 8A. So firstly, on the general rates hybrid option, we have previously voiced concerns about the move towards 50-50 capital to land value split. And whilst we had accepted and supported the idea of a 30-70 split, the decision to move to the 50-50 without consultation was unexpected. As we move nearer to the full 50-50 implementation over 3 years, we urge Council to consider ways to offset the disincentives for businesses investing in their building or businesses coming into our city and any potential inward investment from outside our city and region. So, for example, this could include tax relief, rating differentials or other measures. Whilst we understand that there is a cost efficacy for any such proposal, the Chamber, Palmy Bid and others have gathered feedback that shows there is strong support for recognising the value investors do bring to our city. And you will hear from Palmy Bid later on this evening, so I don't want to steal their thunder on that, but we're certainly on the same page at looking at options. So we'd like to see a plan to city development and regeneration that could be activated through private enterprise if businesses are incentivised to do so. Specifically, as we understand that the new capital value-based rate was initially proposed to fund transport, roading and economic development activities of the council. And that goes somewhere to explain the stronger nexus between capital value and the business community. The Chamber is willing to work with Council to explore realistic options to support city development through that private investment route. Second, on capital projects and financial prudence. We are concerned about proceeding with major capital projects given changes to central government funding, particularly from NZTA, in the shorter term. Council will now have to pick up more of the costs for priority projects. And whilst we support Te Motua Patoa and what it means, and we've just heard from Rangatani there, would support co-governance on such a project, we do question the timing and scale of investment right at this moment in this annual budget plan. there are too many unknowns, especially with major infrastructure projects like our wastewater, that we just have concerns in that space. And looking at return on investment and opportunity costs carefully weighted, as you all know. So we just wanted to highlight that in our talk to our submission here today. And thirdly, on earthquake strengthening and the cultural precinct, we believe earthquake strengthening needs to be treated separately from the cultural precinct development, and in the past it has been intertwined with what we should do in the consultancy work that has been done. We believe priority must be on completing essential strengthening work, but we also do question what that means vis-a-vis changes to what central government are telling us as well. So again, there's a bit of a grey area on there. Potentially, the funding models for the cultural precinct are changing with greater emphasis on private funding or PPPs, private partnerships. But these two areas of the central cultural, the cultural precinct and earthquake, we believe just need to be separated and not bundled together. Sort of as a follow-on from that, really, we are concerned about the impact on businesses whilst essential work is done to the buildings. For example, the Regent, Council, the Chamber and businesses need to work together on practical solutions to minimise disruption. As a Chamber, our concern is for the business community and their ability to operate effectively. So we make no apology that does seem to be the constant emphasis that we have, but that is our role. Where we've seen the unintended consequences of disruption to the business community, such as Featherstone Street, which we're not focusing on today, we have previously made our concerns clear, and we do urge Council to meaningfully consult with us and the business community as these projects move forward. Saying that, thank you all again for hearing us today and for your consideration and for the work that you are all doing for us.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. We've got a number of questions here, but we do have a bit of time. Just firstly from me, just around Te Matapotoa, you are aware, and I know you put it in your submission, you just wanted clarification that it was still a joint funded project.
Correct.
You are aware that nothing can happen until a third of the funding is raised externally.
Okay, so yeah.
Okay, there was a question mark in your submission.
Yeah, we just wanted to have that confirmed that nothing had changed from the LTP and that was the status quo from there. Thank you.
Yeah, so that is still the case.
Yeah.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Amanda. I'm over here. You've taken some quite strong views in your submission, and I'm wondering if you could just take us through the process that the Chamber went through to gather the views of your members and how these are expressed in the submission.
Over quite a long period of time, we do talk to our members, and we're constantly having feedback from them. And we have gone out through to our board and our advisory board, which is quite a large number of people. We're calling for feedback all the time from our members. Sorry, can you? Sorry.
Yeah.
We are talking to our members. It's a constant. It's not just a one-off thing. It's a constant, and we have to make a balanced decision on the information that's coming through to us. You can get somebody that's very, very vocal, but a lot of the others wouldn't agree. So we're having to make a balanced approach from what we hear from our membership.
Okay, so there's no formal going out to members to ask for their opinions on the annual budget. It's more your submission is, could we say, a summary of opinions that you've received over time?
We do go out at the time, and we put extra emphasis on give us your feedback around the times of the annual budget and the long-term plans, definitely. I've just lost my train of thought there. So it is a summation of those things. So we've actually just consulted on another thing with the membership. So we do go directly to the membership as well, but it's much more the nature of the organisation that we are and the knowledge that we have of our members and who's going to.
Okay, it's just to try and help us determine what's a personal view and what might be collective.
Oh, actually, no, thank you for asking that question. That is a very good question. It can never be a personal view. It's really hard sometimes, I can assure you, because some of the things you know, that I might be representing for my membership might not be what I would personally think.
Okay.
And I think just to add to that, Councillor Johnson, there's no formal process by way of
saying this is the council's budget and we asking our membership for a formal, it'll be almost like asking for the submission twice. We don't do that at a formal level, but it is communicated through the membership, through the weekly communication channels, to ask for that specific feedback. And so anyone with an opinion that needs that to be heard then has their own channels for communicating that through to the team.
We're very strong on asking our membership to respond to submissions personally as well, so not just through us. So to put in a submission, whether it's for or against, again, we're very clear that if people agree with things that council are doing, we want them to speak up and say that as well.
Okay, thank you. There are a lot of people wanting questions. I have got other questions, but do you want me to leave it at that?
Yeah, I'll come to others. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Isabella.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Tēnā koroa, thanks for your submission. Just as regards to the rating system, you have suggested tax breaks or differentials or other incentives for properties with a high ratio of CV to LV. Did you have a threshold in mind for what would constitute a high CV-LV ratio, or were you thinking of a new category of rateable property?
Well, let's hope it lands at 50-50 and doesn't move from there, which was one of our sort of questions as well. But if it's at 50-50, and if it's from that point that we then need to start having those conversations. So we don't have the answers at this point in time, but what we're saying is these are some suggestions, how could this work? Because there's always going to be a trade-off, somebody always has to pay. So let's look at what that looks like and how that best benefits everybody.
Right. Thank you. So, and so in your view, if we were putting in a tax break for a certain type of property which had a high value of ratio, high CV ratio, would that apply in your view to only commercial properties with that characteristic, or would that extend to residential properties with that characteristic?
The consideration was on commercial, but again, if it came out of conversations that it was, fair and right, then that would be. We don't have a strong opinion whether that should happen or not.
Okay. And I think just to add to that, the point is more around encouraging that investment in our building stock and in our properties. We want to see building stock improved, so naturally then the CV is going to go up. So it's striking a balance in terms of what the rating cost will be without disincentivising that investment. So again, like Amanda said, it's an open question. We don't come with all the answers, but just a comment to pose to council in that consideration.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
All right. Apologies to others in the queue. We've just run out of time. Thank you very much, Rahui and Amanda. And just to make it really clear, we will be all submitters will deliberate on the annual budget side of things Wednesday, the 14th of May, and then agree to the final budget on Wednesday, the 4th of June. Te Matupatoa, Anzac Park, governance, and then the planning and miscellaneous fees and charges, we will debate that on Wednesday, the 4th of June. Okay. So thank you.
Tēnā koutou, thank you very much again for hearing us, and we're open to talk to anybody at any time as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we go to our next submitter, and it's the Manawatu Tenants Union, and I invite Cameron Jenkins and Lawrence O'Halloran. Thank you, gentlemen, and it's page 73 of the submissions, councillors.
Thank you all. I basically taking our original submission as read. I have worked on a supplementary that you have in front of you in relation to a little bit more data that we have analysed in terms of our service delivery demand and forecast for the end of the year, which obviously supports the request for the one-off additional funding grant that we are seeking. In light of the fact that we are the specialist tenancy support services, we've analysed the data in relation to the referrals. So we receive 25% of our workload comes from every other organisation in the city that deals with housing. as opposed to we refer on 8% of clients who actually require specialist services such as community law, who would have to intervene on higher legal levels that I am not qualified to do. So that's the sort of the level of work that we have, and so really just wanted to reiterate the importance of, as our demand, the increase in the demand, the cost of the services is naturally increasing, and we're at the point where we have to make some decisions that if we want this service to continue to be free for the citizens of Palmerston North, then we need a significant funding increase. As per the original submission, we'll see how we have actually been seeking over the years for council and funding, yet we have not actively had any increase in funding, but the demand has doubled. And, you know, at a cost of $297 per household for a year's support, bearing in mind that a household could be an individual of one, or it could be a multi-generational family of 10 that we would support for the entire year through any dispute or challenges as many times as they need throughout that year. So without the increase of funding, we don't have the ability potentially to respond to a sustainable change in how we operate as a business, and that's why I've come to you to ask for that one-off $30,000 to provide the buffer of which we originally asked for through the strategic priority grant process, which is in the original submission. This is just the supplementary paper for the data, but I will hand to Lawrence if you would like to say anything.
Thank you, Cam. Councillors and Mayor, look, you know, we're an organisation which has got a relatively long history in the city, and we very much appreciate the support that we have received from the Palmerston North City Council. You know, it won't come as any surprise to you that this is a particularly difficult time for tenants, particularly at the lower socio-economic end of the spectrum, and it's a very difficult time for our organisation. Quite frankly, we're in a bit of a struggle at the moment to meet demand in a sustainable fashion. So we don't take it lightly that we're coming back to you for this request, and you know, we're mindful that you have very many other very worthy requests also to consider, but we would ask you to, you know, bear in mind the needs of our residents in tenancy situations at the lower socio-economic end of the spectrum, who are having a hard time at the moment, and we're basically the people at the end of the phone, at the end of the internet, who can help and are trying to do that. So thank you again for your consideration of our request.
Thank you, gentlemen. There's a number of questions, so I'll rip into it. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Cam and Lawrence. Cameron, you just were talking about the increase in demand. Did you say that that had gone up 40%?
So currently for the current year it's 20%.
Yeah.
But over the years that we've been measured at, it's pretty much consistently at that point. So I would say from 10 years ago it's doubled.
Right. So has there been, I guess I'm trying to understand, has there been a recent increase in demand, or has it been a steady increase in demand over that time?
I would say it's been steady, and it's accelerated with the current climate and the current regulation changes that we have had, particularly around no-cause terminations, around people needing help now, with shorter notice periods around terminations.
Right.
We can't have a wait list.
Okay.
Because the reality of it is, if you're in a boarding house situation where you're probably more likely to be at the lower economic level of housing, you only get a 28-day notice for a termination. So we have to see them within 28 days, have a tenancy tribunal application lodged within that. Otherwise, we cannot challenge it. So we can't have a wait list. So we need to be able to respond to that demand. And we're at that point where if the demand increases more than this 20%,
Right.
we're in lots of trouble.
And as well as that, it says in your submission that you've lost some government funding. Can you just explain what that was about?
That is in relation to the government cutting back on all the services and funding. So just to give you an example, we had a $10,000 contract with the Ministry of Business Innovation and Employment to provide the resources that tenancy services print. So we give them out and give education sessions. The government, under their instructions, were to cut 10% of all budgets. That resulted in me losing 30% of that contract.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Finlay.
Yes, Cam. We all know that you do a lot of work with individual tenants. But I just found out just recently you do a lot more work with other organisations in town. You do a lot of networking and stuff like that. You don't get funded for that, do you, at all?
No, that is, through other services, grants, lotteries, etc. So a lot of this work is also done in the ability that we have the flexibility to move our schedule. We encourage tenants to make an appointment so that I can plan to come to things like these. But as we know, that's not always the case. So when I am out advocating for housing for our rainbow community, housing for our senior groups, that comes at a cost of having the office open. Or as a result of what we're seeing is the more we're out there advocating for people, that is then increasing the demand of them coming to our office. So it's a bit of a catch-22 really. And so...
And it's all done free of charge?
Yes. And so that is that thing around, do we lose that community outreach in order to keep someone in the office in exchange for no funding, or do we have funding to ensure we can do everything that we need to?
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, team. Just wanted to understand what your request was. So you've said you want a one-off grant of 30,000 for the next years. Is that 250,000s totalling 30, or is that 230s totalling 60?
Initially it was the 215s, but I'm happy for it to be 230s if you would like.
Fair enough.
Happily to make it 230s, that would be great, William.
And just in understanding that then, so the intention of it being one-off, are there other funding avenues that you're actively exploring, or is this pretty much all that's
We are
available to you?
actively exploring other options, but we also need time to look at those, plan and implement them. An option that I have been doing is doing a fee-for-service model, but at what point when you are homeless and needing support, can I then go and charge you a $30 fee?
Understood. Thank you.
Or what would that fee look like? So that's the why. So yeah, if you would like to amend my submission, I'd be happy to that.
Councillor Barn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just really quickly, Cameron Lawrence, thanks for coming in. What do you see as the impact of this gap of funding for the services you provide for our community?
Essentially, sorry, can you repeat the question?
What's the impact if you don't get the money?
The impact is that we would then, so my hours as full-time would be reduced. There would be days of the weeks that the office is not open. And that would basically mean that we then either have to, if we do have to triage, we then have to pick who we do and don't help. And I don't know about you, but I don't know how to decide between a pregnant woman who is homeless or someone sleeping in their car, because that would be the decisions that I would have to make if I have to pick who I do and don't help. And I'm not prepared to make those decisions, and I don't think anyone on this table would want me to make those decisions, or to have a criteria where unless you are on the benefit, we couldn't help you. You know, that's the level of challenges that we would have to implement, and if we were going down that path, it would have to be a very ruthless implementation. It wouldn't be any discretionary.
So on the basis of the numbers of people you see every week, if you're reducing your hours from full-time down, how many people would that mean that you wouldn't see a week? Are you able to say that?
We haven't narrowed that down that far yet. That would be at the next stage.
Okay. No, that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, Mr.
sorry,
Mayor.
I didn't anticipate that question yesterday when we were analysing the data.
All right, thank you, Cam. I'm sorry to others in the queue, our time has run out. Thank you, Cam. Thanks, Lawrence. Appreciate your submission. As I said earlier, we will deliberate that on Wednesday the 14th and then agree to the final budget on the following Wednesday, the 4th of June, or 2 Wednesdays on the 4th of June. Thank you for your submission. All right. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to clear interest in this submission. I'll withdraw from my seat.
Thank you. All right, councillors, we're now to submission number 57, the Cancer Society of New Zealand, the Manawatu Centre, and Josie Guthrie, the health promoter. Josie, welcome.
Kia ora koutou, my name's Josephine. I'm the health promoter for the Cancer Society Manawatu. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you today. My submission focuses on the vital role that Palmerston North City Council plays in the community wellbeing and development, creating a healthy, safe and inclusive environment for the community to thrive. I want to start by commending the Council for their dedication to supporting the community's health and wellbeing by providing budget allocation towards protective health resources, such as shade development and smoke-free, vape-free advocacy. We must continue our commitment so that being a healthy, smoke-free, vape-free and sun-smart community becomes the status quo. This requires dedicated efforts towards cancer prevention, including the allocation of budget to implement the draft health promotion policy, support shade planning and invest in the infrastructure needed to promote physical activity and maintain our smoke-free, vape-free and sun-smart standards. The Cancer Society of New Zealand Manawatu Centre is committed to reducing the smoking-related cancer rates in Palmerston North. Achieving this goal requires a strong, united community effort to reduce smoking risks through comprehensive smoke-free and vape-free policies in schools and workplaces, reducing tobacco availability, and supporting smoke-free and vape-free outdoor spaces. It's about making a smoke-free and vape-free living the norm. It's about making smoke-free and vape-free living the norm in the places we live, work, and play. Current smoking rates in New Zealand have reduced since the 2018 census by almost half, currently sitting at 8.4% of 2023-24. Although this decrease is reassuring to the support we are providing in this area, smoking still remains a significant threat to New Zealanders' public health, especially in Māori and Pacifica communities. Smoking is still the leading cause of preventable death in New Zealand. Encouragingly, vaping rates have begun to decline since the 2023 results of the ASH Year 10 Snapshot Survey. While Māori and Pacifica students continue to have a higher vaping rates compared to Pākehā students, there has been statistically significant decreases from 2023 to 2024. This is promising news, and with continued support and resourcing in this area of advocacy, we can hope to see more of a decline in years to come. In regards to sunshade developments, we believe PNCC is making necessary steps towards providing safe and healthy parks and reserves for whānau. The dedicated budget towards shade developments is promising and shows PNCC's support towards healthy resourcing. A significant concern with the current allocation of funds is that the majority may be absorbed by administration processes, leaving little for the actual purchase and installation of shade structures. This approach overlooks the real need, creating safe, comfortable outdoor spaces for our community. By making shade development a core priority in all new park projects, we can ensure that more of the budget is used where it truly matters, on the ground, providing health, improving public health and making our parks more inviting for everyone. We also recommend expanding the focus beyond just adding shade when designing healthier parks and reserves. Elements such as water fountains, appropriate ground surface materials to minimise UVR reflection, accessible rubbish bins, and functional recreational spaces all play a crucial role in promoting active, healthy lifestyles. It's important to recognise that hard or smooth surfaces often have a higher albedo, meaning they reflect more ultraviolet radiation onto the public. In contrast, natural ground covers like grass with their softer and more varied textures help reduce UVR exposure. Overall, using a health and all policies approach to policy and decision making, much like how the direction of the draft health promotion policy is heading, is a powerful step towards improving community health and wellbeing. This approach ensures that health is considered across all areas of planning, ultimately contributing to a more livable, vibrant community. By working together using a health impact lens on our decision making, let's hope we can make a real difference to the burden caused by these health issues in our communities. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Josie. Yes, we do have a number. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Josephine. Just in terms of your submission where you say that we need meaningful funding allocation towards draft health promotion shade development, do you think that there isn't enough funding in the budget for shade development at the moment? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think, like I said in the submission, that a lot of it will go towards administration of it. So there's a lot of planning and kind of decision making that takes up a lot of the time about like where the shade can go, what's the best use of it, should we do natural shade, should we do built shade, what's the kind of best decision to make. A lot of the money will go into that kind of administration rather than the actual like development of bigger shade structures that will make more of an impact.
Okay, and did you have a figure in mind or a percentage you think we should increase it by?
I haven't gone that far,
Okay.
but I would love to discuss it.
Right, thank you.
That's just sparked a question from me. Can you evidence that you know that all the money's going to administration?
I don't have evidence of it, but I do know the kind of costs involved with bigger shade structures and how they do take up quite a bit of funding. And then I know that projects that are this large can take a lot of time to get across the line, which takes up more administration, which obviously you have to pay people to do that. So I can just imagine and kind of theoretically see that a lot of the money is going to go towards the administration and then very small amount left for a large project. So the project might be smaller and not have much of an impact.
Do you not think there should be some decent planning amongst
Absolutely, I
where
do
trees go
think
and
there should be decent
shade
planning.
structures go?
Yeah, I do think there should be decent planning. That's why increasing the budget for it means that we can have effective planning and then also effective shade.
Okay, so what figure are you looking at?
I haven't, like I said, I haven't put up the numbers yet, so I haven't made the budget. But I do think looking more into of how much is actually going to go into the administration of a big shade project and then seeing how much the shade's going to cost and then making the number from that instead of...
Okay. Yeah. All right, thank you. Councillor Isabella.
Thank you. Kia ora, Josie. Did the Cancer Society get an opportunity to feed back into the revision of the vegetation framework, which is in process? Do you know?
The what, sorry?
The vegetation framework that we have is being revised at the moment. I wondered if the Cancer Society had had an opportunity to feed into that.
No, I wasn't. Sorry, I wasn't aware of that.
Do you think that, because the vegetation framework applies to exactly the sort of work that you've talked about in your submission, do you think that we would benefit from hearing a health perspective from organisations like yours as part of that work?
Is the vegetation framework around increasing like edible vegetation in the community, or is it
all vegetation?
All
and
vegetation.
what plants go where and that sort of thing?
Absolutely, yeah. I think having a health perspective on that would benefit absolutely, because having more nutritional food available to the community is always beneficial to our health and the health of the community. So we'd love to have an opinion and a kind of say in what's happening there. I just wasn't aware it was happening, sorry.
That's great, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Josie. That's our questions gone. I appreciate your submission. As with the other submitters, we'll look at debating that Wednesday the 14th of May, and then a final decision on Wednesday the 4th of June. Appreciate your interest. Okay, we now move forward to number 60, which is aged friendly, Palmerston North. I invite up Russell Hallam and Kerry Hokart. Welcome. And it's number 60, councillors, in your papers. Just press the buttons there, yeah.
Ina mana ina reo ina tangata o te wā. tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ngā mihi mai kia koutou, ka Russell Helen Takawengawa, no Chairperson Age Friendly Palmerston North Road. Me Kerry Hockard, Secretary Age Friendly Palmerston North. Kia ora koutou. I just want to follow up on the submission that Kerry has presented to you on behalf of Age Friendly Palmerston North. And she will make some more comments about that as we go through this little time, and it won't be very long, I promise. Following up from the submission, I want to make a few comments on the now and the when. We have commended Council on accepting the concept of applying for age-friendly status for our city, and for providing budget lines and current budgets for this, as well as ongoing support for the continuation of being age-friendly once accredited. This submission is for the future continuation of those budget lines. As you know, an age-friendly status accredited by the World Health Organization will be positive acclamation for our city and will be a natural move to support our current Safe City and Welcoming City accreditations. Mr. Mayor, I noted at the International Workers' Memorial Day earlier this week your comments on commitment to Palmerston North being a safe city for its workers and its residents. Indeed, age-friendly city status will be an important component in achieving this goal. The senior sector of our community is the one sector which is common for us all, either now or in the future. Going forward then, it is important that we not only continue to budget for the accreditation, but to continue putting funding in place to be keeping up with the needs of seniors as identified in the criteria for age-friendly status by the World Health Organization. Therefore, we call upon Council to ensure that the budget line for age-friendly becomes permanent for future strategic planning, city planning, and annual and long-term budgets. A target for our Council is to attract people to our city, both as visitors and permanently. The senior sector is part of this target, and providing a safe, welcoming and age-friendly environment will certainly make Palmerston North an attractive destination for this section of the community. Again, we thank you for your mahi and support for this piece of work, and we look forward to a healthy and positive future for all residents of our city. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā koutou katoa.
Thank you, Russell.
Kia ora koutou. So I'm going to talk about the why we should do this. We believe the allocation of funding for the age-friendly plan is crucial. This funding is instrumental in continuing the Council's commitment to being an age-friendly city. It makes possible an advisor to coordinate the implementation of this plan. We ask you to recognise the long-term benefits of investing in this initiative. By doing so, you're sending a clear message that our community values and respects older people. An age-friendly community is not just a nicety, it's a necessity. It's about creating a society where seniors can live with dignity and respect, families can grow and flourish, and people living with disabilities can access the resources and support they need to participate fully in our community. In the plan, Danielle Harris of Rangatane reminded us of our own deep sense of responsibility and commitment to our kaumātua, who carry the stories and lessons of our tupuna, our whānau, and the wider community of the city. Let's honour this commitment by investing in an age-friendly community that promotes an inclusive and welcoming community for all. We're happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kerry. So just from me before I go to my colleagues, so what you're asking for here in your submission is, because I understand we've got a 0.5 FTE within the existing annual budget. You're just really advocating to ensure that it stays there.
Continuation.
Right, okay, good, thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you both. Further clarification along the Mayor's line of questioning. So your view is that you want that half an FTE in council or in age-friendly and why is it important where that person sits?
I think the issue is that unless it's clear as to where that person sits, there's a real concern that the age-friendly work may actually lose that kind of coordination and making sure that it actually happens. I think a lot of this has been about the relationship between council and the community, and I think having it within council with the relationship to the community, it sends really strong message to the community that this matters, that this is really important to all of us.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Harpeder.
Just a question from me. Thank you to Russell and Kerry. Do you know if other councils have got a 0.5 age-friendly person?
When I was working in this role, yes, there were several councils around the country that did do this. Since I've finished with this role, I'm not actually sure what the recent picture looks like.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, that's our questions done. Thank you for your submission. It is appreciated. Again, like other submitters, we will debate this on Wednesday the 14th of May, and then we'll agree to a final budget on the 4th of June. Appreciate your time and submission.
Kia ora.
Okay, we move to submission 128, and that is from Resonate Consultants. So just invite Glenn Young to the table, and this is on behalf of the Kiki Whenua development. Yep, just perhaps give it to my colleague there, and he can do some running around the table.
Kia ora, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, council staff. Yes, as the Mayor indicated, my name is Glenn Young. I'm the Director at Resonant Consulting, and I'm here today on behalf of Kiki Whenua. Apologies, I'm getting old, so I have to read my submission. I always forget halfway through these days. So Kiki Whenua, they're the sole owners of the residential development area known as Kiki Whenua in the Palmerston North District Plan. This is an area of about 20 hectares. I was just on its way around the room. It's a proposed development of 300 new residential lots, 2 large stormwater reserves, and a central green space corridor. This was rezoned in 2020 as the key residential growth path for Palmerston North, and will form the entranceway into the larger future residential area council knows as Kakatangiara. I'm here in support of the current forecast funding sitting in the annual plan, and in support of the council and the works already undertaken. Programs, I'll list them out: 1681, 1857, 2445, 2512, 2511. They're all in my original submission, and they identify the forecast work the infrastructure team have put together. The details of which are already laid out in the draft annual plan. The critical part is without council's ongoing support to these programs, Kiki Whenua will not be able to proceed. These programs are not critical, not just critical just for Kiki Whenua, but also for the entire city's growth. Despite the rezoning in 2020, we are still yet to receive council subdivision consent. This is largely due to the time it takes to get through the consenting pathway, and in particular restrictions being placed on us by NZTA. I mention this just to illustrate the timeline that it takes to get such a significant development across the line, and the importance of council's continued support. So these ongoing programs that council will see sitting there, and those line items that often sit there for many years, without those, we wouldn't have any, we would still be back where we were 4 years ago. So the changes or amendments I would ask council to consider is a combination of committing the existing program, some additional, and carry forwarding some of the money that hasn't been spent in the previous years. So I identified these before. Program 2512, it's a water program. Council, as you'll be aware, have installed the water main along to Wanaka Road, but this now requires connection to Grand Oaks and through to Pioneer Highway. We estimate this about 1.5 million for the next stage. There is currently no dedicated funding in this particular line item, so this will need to be additional funding or reallocated from the current growth projects. Program 1681 is a transport carry forward. This is $3 million that was identified in the last financial year. We would ask that this be carried forward into this financial year. We're working closely with council for the Te Wanaka upgrade, roading upgrade, and to improve the corridor access through there. We would ask that be considered that the True Reserves programs identified in 2005, 26 and 27 be brought forward into the next financial year. And the wastewater program, we'd ask that be brought forward into this financial year, 25-26. Noting that none of these costs, as the council will be aware, are not rating costs. This is all, the worst case scenario may feature debt funding, while the $4.5 million of development contributions as a result of the development and 300 lots. Look, thank you for your time here this morning. I just really wanted to be just to reiterate the importance of all the good work you have committed to already, and I appreciate how difficult the funding is, and that if we could keep on the path we're on, I think we'll make the city a better place. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks, Glenn. My understanding is we've already started some of this work. Could I just get an understanding from officers what actually has been done and what is yet to be done?
Yes, good morning, Chris Tyberg, GM Infrastructure. So we've been, as Glenn indicated, we've been working pretty closely with Glenn and the wider team for some time on this. What we have done this year is we've brought the new water main down through Grand Oaks and along into Te Monica Road. So that was one of the bits that we had to do to make sure there was water, and eventually that'll carry on and support some of the other stuff. So yeah, most of the I think all of the programs that Glenn has talked about in here is work that we're aware of and we've been working around. It's all about timing. So this is all about just realigning the timing of when things can happen. And as Glenn pointed out, probably the biggest issue with timing is trying to get alignment with NZTA on the traffic.
Okay, all right. I'll pass to my colleagues. Councillor Naylor.
Thanks for your submission. The last part of your submission, you've suggested that less priority should go on the nice-to-have projects and community support initiatives. I'm just wondering if you have any examples.
I appreciate the challenge council have and the funding that's available, and I think we just drive around the city and we see the challenges you have with obviously the visual service and roading and what's hidden under the ground, and that's why I would ask council to have a consideration of that as a priority versus some of the community type facilities that we as a community can provide. I think for those that aren't aware of my history, I've spent some time in council before, and I'm aware of the importance of ongoing maintenance and ongoing commitment to that infrastructure. And if we don't keep investing in that, we can get away for a year or two, but it's a bit like your house. You can probably afford to not paint it for a year or two, leave it 3 or 4, then it's not a new paint, it's a new house. And that's all I would stress council. Look, when they're looking at those, dare I say, boring things that aren't necessarily exciting, but that infrastructure commitment is critical for the lifeblood of the city. And yeah, I'd rather not say particular programs that I just ask you to look through that lens, if that was all right.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Glenn, for the handout here with the colored shading for stage 1 with 30 lots. If we stick with the status quo, realizing that not everything is in your control, but what would be a realistic time frame for 30 homes to be available? And what difference would it make if we changed timing?
Right, so if you'd asked me that question 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said 6 months away. So I throw that in as a rider to the answer. But our program is to commence physical works this summer, and we're committed to doing that. Council have invested heavily in infrastructure on their part to get this first stage away. We have commitment in the 3 water space for the first stage. Council made a commitment for roading upgrade on the Te Monica intersection, which would give it to 30 lots. The last piece we need is NZTA to sign off on that. We have verbal commitment from them, but that's been 4 years of negotiations to get there. Yep. I'm sitting here confident today we will be having 30 houses there. Foundations will be going in early next year.
Thank you. And just to be clear, the adjustments in timing, you want those relate specifically to stage 1 delivery, or is that unlocking the entire project?
Unlocking the entire project, yeah. Sorry, yeah, unlocking the entire project. So where the 30 lots came from is there was an initial approach from NZTA. They were comfortable with 30 lots through the existing intersection. That then changed with changes of staff in NZTA. They took a different view and said, no, we want upgrade before we allow anything. So Kiki Whenua are committed to about 30 lots a year based on, obviously people will be aware of market forces at the moment, but the idea is that we think we can get 30 houses built each year. And that's the current plan. As markets rise and fall, those amounts may rise and fall correspondingly.
Thanks. So at 266 lots and 30 a year, then that's kind of a 7 to 9 year development trajectory to see the map entirely filled with houses.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thanks, Glenn. That's our questions done. Appreciate your submission on behalf of your staff members, and we will, like the other submitters, we will deliberate that on Wednesday the 14th of May, and then agree to a final budget on Wednesday the 4th of June. So appreciate your time and efforts in the submission. Thank you. All right. And now we've got on fees and charges and planning, Mr. Fugel. Les, welcome. And that's number one, councillors, are amongst submissions specifically around planning and miscellaneous services. Over to you, Les. You're on.
Good morning, all. I'm not actually here seeking any money, but rather to sort of comment on council's fees and charges, and to explain why I'm sort of questioning that. I've sort of prepared a two-page letter here, which I've asked to be put up on the screen for convenience sake, so everybody can sort of read it at the same time.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Les Fugel. I'm a local ratepayer and business owner. Therefore, I have cause to interact with council staff, which frequently charges for that service. My unease on this topic stems from council's underlying policy of charging an hourly rate for time staff and recovering 100% of the provided planning services. In a nutshell, I assert that the fees and charges are unfair, exceed market rates, are overly inflated and obstruct growth. The function of council staff is not to profiteer, but to proactively facilitate business and wellbeing services, not dissimilar from a range of other community and social organisations, entities that typically operate on a non-profit basis, limiting, if not voluntary, to their actual overhead costs. I therefore question the rationale behind the council's practice to charge for staff time at a rate significantly higher than their remuneration. To illustrate my point, a staff member working on a standard 40-hour week being charged out of the listed schedule rate for a planning officer at $235 an hour would bring in some $460,000 in revenue for council annually. Enlarging on the above, a fundamental purpose behind the collection of rates is to avail that income towards council's operating costs, including that of staff salaries, thus raising concern why additional charges are imposed for staff time when their day-to-day work is paid from that source. Further, a key component behind any charge is that the elected members must be satisfied that their staff are providing value for money service. There is a strong sentiment within the community that some staff at times are floundering, a view supported by the high level of complaints the council receives. Examples: applications are regularly subject to requests for further information, which is often perceived by the applicant as not related to the matter and or information that has already been provided. There is also concern that processing staff constantly need to consult with colleagues and or external consultants due to not having the necessary qualifications or experience, which causes process delays and escalation in costs. To highlight this point, it is noted that between July 2024 and March 25, a mere 8 months, staff expended $921,000 on external consultants seeking assistance over planning matters. Council staff are paid out of the administration account, bankrolled from rates that, once including other income revenues, amount to approximately $196 million. Council puts aside 0.47% of that intake, which beckons the question, why so little, towards the operating of planning division, i.e. $921,000. I have no knowledge of staff numbers engaged under the planning umbrella, but say, unlikely those salaries collectively would match that sum. However, if there's a shortfall in operating the planning division, then that put-aside sum should be increased. Planning processing charges. Section 150 of the Local Government Act explicitly restricts the council from recovering more than the reasonable costs incurred for the matter which the fee is charged, while the RMA, Section 36, sets out the criteria for fixing charges. Council's policy sets out to recover 100% of the planning matters costs, which of course is predominantly made up of staff time. I say these charges ought to be removed in their entirety, as staff are paid from the administration account and for the hereafter reasons. While acknowledging it may be simpler for the administration, from an administration perspective, to impose a starting charge, that is not what the legislation describes. The law restricts to no more than the reasonable cost of processing the matter. A fixed charge, particularly at the described rates, fails to account that the actual cost can be less than the scheduled starting charge. Below is a mere couple of examples that highlights concerns with setting a standardised charge. But firstly, one needs to be mindful that an application is predominantly prepared by professional consultants who retain a wealth of experience in such matters. Council staff are effectively the peer reviewers, and that at times there is apprehension whether applications are appropriately managed and within a timely manner. Council has fixed non-notified land use charge at $5,000, albeit the charge comes with the ability to impose additional charges. Thus, indicates an officer would typically incur over a week processing the application. Excuse me. Where we? Thus indicates an officer would typically incur over a week processing the application if paid a generous wage of $100 per hour. Whereas, unless the applications retain serious shortcomings, am advised by professionals, an application under this category ought to be capable of being processed in a day or thereabouts. Council has fixed limited notification subdivisions of up to 20 lots at a charge-out rate of $28,000 and exceeding 20 lots, a starting charge of $48,000. With the bulk of the work undertaken by professionals outside of council, the processing time for these applications ought not to exceed a few days. Thus, a charge is beyond the realms of reasonableness. I also question why the huge difference between the two charges. A larger lot subdivision does not necessitate additional work, certainly to the extent the fees imply. A larger lot subdivision, should it be advanced that a larger lot subdivision is more complex and time consuming, that would be misleading. While a larger subdivision do require additional engineering drawings and more peer review time, this phase of work is not undertaken at the planning permission stage. Planning approval involves the processing officer checking the applications to satisfy the rules and the policy and objectives are met. Thus, the extent of work is all but the same regardless of the number of lots. Engineering drawings for consideration and approval is a separate step thereafter. While not directly a planning charge matter, it is worth noting that at the time of subdivision, the developer bears the entire cost of the subdivision, including the road build, the cost of installing service that must strictly adhere to council specifications, which includes pipes must have a shelf life of no less than 80 years. Further, a developer, having met that significant cost, must also pay development limits, which the sum varies but equates to many $1,000s per section. Therefore, the developer must gift the road and land it sits upon to council, who then benefits by receiving ongoing rates from each section. In conclusion, council is empowered to recover 100% of the reasonable costs to process the matter. However, a blanket charge approach inevitably exceeds the actual reasonable cost of doing so. The charge-out rate for staff time is beyond reasonable. A fairer and safer recovery model is charge-up based on the actual costs, less any offsets, thus eliminating the risk of overcharging. Planning process charges, which consist largely of staff time, should be completely removed. If for no other reason than the council receives the wider benefits noted above, and the charges actually stymie development. Finally, an independent watchdog should be established to ensure staff transparency and restore public confidence. I thank you for your time and open to any questions.
Thanks, Les. That's basically well over our time, so I appreciate you going through that in detail. We've got your original submission and your expanded points there. And look, it would be unfair of me to allow a whole lot of questions, well, I didn't for others. But look, we'll take your submission, which will go direct to the 4th of June. We thank you for those points. Thank you. All right, we move through now to our recommendations, that the council receive all the submissions and hear submissions from presenters today who indicated their wish to be heard in support of their submission. That council note the procedures of the hearings of submissions as described in attachment 1. I'm happy to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. I'll ask you to vote, please. It's passed 16 votes for and none against. Thank you. Right, we now move back to number 7, which is around the governance structure options and summary of those submissions. Number 7, and I'll ask Aaron Phillips, Manager of Parks, to come forward, please.
Good morning, Mr Mayor and Councillors. Aaron Phillips, Activities Manager for the Parks team. Apologies from Kathy Dever-Todd, who would ordinarily have presented this paper, and the consultant who's been doing the work on the proposal was unable to make it as well, so you have me today. Fairly straightforward report summarising the submissions over a couple of pages for the you've received on the topic. I just quickly point out my typo on page 11.4.8. Should have read 59 and not 57. Sorry, I just spotted that this morning, just in case an eagle-eyed one of you had spotted that one, and I won't mention the other typo on the pie chart. We've been consulting on the proposal for the governance arrangements for Te Motua Potua with a stated preference of a jointly governed CCO. Page 10 in section 4.3 covers the results in a pie chart, which I think is probably the easiest thing to digest the summary of submissions through. It shows the percentages of people that supported each of the options that are proposed and those that opposed all of the options, which was roughly evenly split. 48% supported the option that council had put out in its consultation material, while 52% either supported different options or suggested that no option should be supported. We did note that quite a lot of the submissions were on the project itself rather than the governance of it, so we attempted to provide you a bit of a breakdown in the tables on page 11, section 4.7, and the table on page 12 under section 4.8 that gave you a little bit more information about how the breakdowns worked, because it wasn't quite as simple as yes or no in some cases. But you can see from that there was a number of submissions that recommended council don't proceed with the project either at all or at this time, largely relating back to comments around affordability and other matters. The submissions will be considered and responded to in a future report. The purpose of today isn't to respond to the submissions, but to give you a bit of a summary, and then we'll also take into account the verbal submissions you hear today in that future report. And happy to take questions.
Thanks, Aaron. So today really is a summary of where we sit with everything. The debate itself is carried out on the 4th.
Correct. This is just a summary of the submissions to make it easier for you to understand them.
Cool. Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Aaron. Just a quick question. So you've said in 4.4 that if people didn't select an option but opposed the project, then you counted them in the no option supported.
Yes, that's correct.
So were there many submissions where they didn't support the project, but then they chose an option for governance?
Unfortunately, this is, I'm not going to be able to answer the question, Councillor. The consultant for the project prepared the report, and I don't have that detail in front of me, but I could come back to you.
Okay. Would it be possible to divide up the responses according to whether people supported or didn't support the project? Because I'm assuming that there would have been some submissions from people that didn't support the project that did express an opinion about the governance.
Hopefully I'm interpreting your question correctly, but table 1 in page on 4.7 does that to some extent. The number of submissions relating to the options is in the column under number, and then should council should not fund this project either at all or at this time is in the next column. So of the 55 submissions that supported the preferred option of joint governance, for example, 2 of those didn't think it should happen at this time, but they supported the governance proposal.
Okay, so we can be fairly sure from that table that of those 55, 2 of them indicated that option but didn't support the project.
Didn't support. I'd have to double check the detail, but they either didn't support it at this time or at all. But we might need a little bit more detail there to be concise.
I mean, it's just sort of a comment, but a little bit more detail I think will be helpful. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Happer.
Thank you. So the number of people that wanted to delay it, Aaron, you talked about that. How long do they want to delay it for? How many years?
I'd have to go back through the individual submissions or get the consultant to do so, and I probably can't comment on whether people provided that level of detail or not. I did read the submissions, but I didn't take note of whether people suggested a particular time frame for delaying it or not.
Potentially 5, 10. I mean, that's kind of a bit of information that we probably need for this kind of discussion.
We can check if there were suggestions about the length of time people suggested it be delayed.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Aaron. Just in the consultation process part of the report, which is paragraphs 3.1, says we offered a meeting to 2 different organizations, and I just wondered kind of how we got to the view that those 2 needed a meeting and others didn't, and why we didn't kind of meet with more organizations during the process.
Feeling a little bit hamstrung, Councillor. Unfortunately, I wasn't directly involved, and the consultant and others ran the process, and I'd have to go back and ask further questions. Apologies.
Just in general, when we're out consulting, if somebody asks for a meeting, do they get one?
It would be unusual for us to decline it, I would suggest, but I can't hand on heart say what happened in this case.
Cool, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Kia ora, Erin. Is it standard procedure that a consultant does the report, furnishes a report to the council?
It's a little bit of, depends on the case. In this case, the consultant is preparing the reports for you that some of which I imagine you've already received on what structures, options there are, and the views on those. I'm not, in council offices generally, I don't think, I might get some correction from management, we don't have technical expertise in legal structures for governing organisations typically in-house. And so in this case, we've engaged someone who's used to those sorts of pieces of work. And we thought there's value in them assessing the submissions because they're the ones who are going to provide you with the advice on the structures following the submissions.
So the rationale for the consultant providing us with this summary of submissions is because of their continued role in it, as opposed to, I'm just a bit confused. I'm thinking, why wouldn't we have in-service, in-house consultation, given that we have statisticians, that we have at other times officers providing that? So I'll go back to my question again. Is this standard practice that a consultant would provide this level
I'll just get the CE
submissions?
to respond to that. I could respond to it too, but I'll let the CE.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, it is highly unusual for a consultant to be providing a cover report for a paper. Generally, the consultant might have an attachment that might get put to it. So apologies, councillors. I perhaps should have been across this one a little bit more than I was.
Thank you. Kia ora.
All right. We have the recommendation there around council receiving the report, Te Matua Apatoa, governance management structure options, summary of the submissions presented to council on 30th April 2025. I'm happy to move it. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Councillors, it is just a summary, and obviously Aaron will go back and sort out some of those extra questions or answers to those extra questions that were furnished to him a little bit earlier. I'll just remind you, it is around we consulted on the structure options of the management and governance of it, although some residents took the opportunity to tell us their views about not doing it and relitigating that decision that we've already made. So ask you to support the recommendation. If no further speakers, we will vote, please. We've got 15-4. We're missing somebody. Leonie. 4 against. Sorry? Okay, that's unanimous, yep. All right. Oh, abstaining. Okay, you're abstaining. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's 15 votes for and 1 abstention. Councillors will now adjourn the meeting to 11 a.m. and Councillor Wood will be in the chair. All right. And we'll be back in the chamber and for those online at 11 a.m. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou and good morning. I'll ask all of our councillors to take their seats as we get into the second session of the day for hearings for the annual budget and the Te Motu o Poutoa governance arrangements. For the starting of this meeting, I just want to explain to everybody here that will be recorded and live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. Thank you to all of our guests and welcome to all of our guests in the chambers today. We'll have health and safety on the screen in just one moment. For those of you who are new or coming back into the chamber, on the hearing of an alarm, please exit the site using your nearest fire exit and evacuate at the clock tower in Te Maraeohine, the square. Smoking and vaping is prohibited within the council building and public entrance, and there is a defibrillator located outside the entrance to the customer services on the ground floor. Please report any near misses or incidents to our committee administrators. To start with this session, have we got any apologies from councillors? No? Seeing none, I'll ask for declarations of interest if there are any. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to declare that with submission number 87, Palmerston North Boys High School, I'm employed by this school as a teacher. However, I have taken counsel from the governance manager and am aware that this is just a hearing as opposed to any deliberations. So I'm just declaring that, but I don't see there's any perceived real conflict. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Right, and with that, I'll welcome our first submitter, Kay Harkness from Canine Friends Pet Therapy. I'd refer all of our submitters here today to our procedure sheet, and there'll be copies on the table. You'll have 10 minutes available to speak. Or any questions that you might be asked by councillors will be asked within that 10 minutes. So if you would like to take some questions, feel free to leave some time for that. And other than that, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm the liaison officer of the Manawatu of Canine Friends Pet Therapy. And I'm hoping some of you have at least heard of us and what we do. We seem to sort of fly under the radar because we're a volunteer group. We don't stand on street corners asking for money or anything like that. We just quietly get on with what we do. 35 years ago, a lady in Wellington took her dog to visit a friend in a rest home and saw how everyone loved it. So basically, that's how Canine Friends was born. It's now New Zealand-wide with 753 members. So I'm here today to ask if the council would consider waiving or reducing the fees for the Palmerston North and Ashurst members. We do a lot around the town. Go back to my notes, I'm losing myself. I think I've already said this, but I'm sorry if I repeat myself. Every rest home has one dog at least a week visiting, sometimes two. One during the week, one in the weekends. And in the hospital, we do, 13, 14, 15 areas, because I picked up a new one yesterday. You'll see at least 30 different dogs in the hospital in a month. Everyone's rostered, so everyone gets a turn. Dogs visiting reduce stress and depression and improves cardiovascular health, and even the smallest interaction with dogs will cause the human brain to produce a hormone which is often referred to as the cuddle hormone. We do group visits to universities, UCOL colleges to help reduce stress for exams. We've had one or two nice letters back from lecturers saying how much that the students have enjoyed our visits and how it's helped them. Orientation visits are sometimes hard on the students because they're homesick, out of their depth, or just missing their own pets, so we'll see them actually cuddling our dogs, crying. But apparently it helps them through. Apart from our core visits, which is the rest homes, the hospital and the hospice, we have done 16 group visits, and I think we're only up to week 17. So we basically do a group visit a week, which involves anything from 4 to 6 to 8 of us. And in 11 of those times, we've actually embarrassed our dogs for dressing them up for the occasion, for Easter and Valentine's and St. Paddy's Day and that sort of thing. As you know, we do Stories Unleashed at the libraries, all 5 of them, during term time. 2 of the libraries even carried it on over this last school holidays. And we normally do the holiday program at the libraries as well. And in December, January, we joined into that one in the various places around the town where it was held. And 9 of us thoroughly enjoyed the finale at the Esplanade. You'll also come across us in all sorts of events around town, rural games, Anzac parades, other walks. And just to remind you, we do all this for no monetary value, only a smile from people. So we don't get paid for it. We do, everything is free. When someone applies to Canine Friends, they have to have a Justice Department check before they can officially apply. And then when we do the assessment of them, they have to produce paperwork showing that their dogs are registered and that they're up to date with their vaccines. We're very clear on these things. The dogs have to be registered and vaccinated. Then when they're assigned a rest home or the hospital, they then do health and safety checks wherever they go. Yeah, so if we're lucky enough to get you lovely councillors to look kindly on us, we are mostly like me and old age pensioners. I'm more than happy to administer on a yearly basis who qualifies and who doesn't. To qualify, they will have to have been joined for at least a year and to do at least 2 hours visiting a month. I know we've got some members that won't qualify, and I'm likely to get sarcastic remarks and whatnot, but that's their problem, not mine. If they're prepared to do the work, they get the rewards then if you're very nice to us. So apart from that, if you have a stressful council meeting, call on us and we'll come in and bring a heap of dogs in. Or we could do a fashion show, a doggy fashion show for you.
Thank you, Kay. We may need that on the 14th for our deliberations. Are you happy to take questions, Kay?
Yes.
The Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Kay. Appreciate you bringing in your friends with you. Other councils, what you're requesting of us, do you know if any other councils do that?
Yes, Taupo do, and the president lives in Taupo, so she told me that, and she feels sure Rotorua do as well.
Right, okay.
I haven't contacted any other.
No, that's fine.
liaison
So
officers.
it has happened in other places.
Yes, it has happened.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thanks for the work you do.
Councillor Zabellon.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Kay. I'm over here in the corner. You said in your submission it's about 46 dogs currently registered with you.
The Manawatu membership is 60 dogs, but it is only the Palmerston North and Ashurst dogs I'm asking for. The others are registered elsewhere, and I've forgotten the numbers of it.
That's fine, thank you.
It is on one of my bits of paper.
Have you seen your membership grow over time?
Our membership's growing all the time. I've been doing this for 7 years, and when I first started there was 20-something members, but I've had to do some Facebook advertising for members and word-of-mouth advertising for members because we keep getting more places to visit. When I took over, we did 1 ward in the hospital. Now we're up to 14 or 15 or something.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Kay.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Kay, for coming in. You said in your submission that most of the members are retired or seniors, is that correct?
Yes.
So, are they, have you had feedback that they're struggling with the registration costs? Is that what's behind the request?
Not really. It wasn't my first thought. I would like to give back to the members that help me out. Being the liaison officer, I'm the one that organises who goes where. Organising 30 different people on a roster to go to the hospital. People our age have hip operations and knee operations. People go on holiday, so I have to make sure those gaps are filled. And I have good ones that are always willing to help out. But I would like to give back to them as well as have the council acknowledge that we exist even.
Okay. Do you get funding from any other organisations?
Sorry?
Do you have funding from any other organisations or charitable trusts?
No, we don't get funding. The organisation gets a bit of funding, mainly it's fees and that sort of thing. Sometimes Massey or UCOL will ask if they can make a donation. That gets sent to head office. If they do, we don't even get told how much they have donated. Auckland and Wellington and places like that, I think, get paid or get more donations in than what we do. We're too small for that sort of thing. We just do it because we can do it. Okay. And we enjoy doing it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Kay, for coming and presenting to us. That is all the questions we have in the queue today, so thank you. Your submission will be considered in our deliberations on the 14th of May with a decision made on the 4th of June. Thank you for coming and speaking to us and bringing your two lovely pets.
Thank you very much.
Our next submitter we have is Sharon Sandgaith to submit on the Te Motu Opotoa governance options. Sharon, you have 10 minutes to speak. If you would like time for questions, you're welcome to allow it, and we'll be keeping strictly to time to make sure everybody gets a fair chance. The floor is yours.
Ko tahi e mihi ana ki au matu kore, ko ranganui e tui honei, ko papatua nuku e takaro ake nei. Ki ngā atua e mihi ana. Ko tāne, ko rongo, ko tā whirimatia, mā ngā atua. Ko tarurua te monga, ko Manawatu te awa. Ki ngā iwi o te rauhi nei, e mihi ana. Ko waitohi mā ngā tupuna, ko Ngāti Rokawa, te iwi. Ki te morai o hine, ki te whare nei, ke te mihi. Kia kōrua, kia koe, kia koto, tēnā koto katoa. No aio, no uripi o kutupuna ke puta o ke Oregon, ke te hononga ki Amerika, ko Hugh Rawe ko Marcy o ko Matua, ko Sharon Sandgaith, toku ingoa, ko Rain Rawa ko Perry aku tamapakeke, ka kōrero o I te kōpapa I te motu o Potoa pā, ki te kōpapa I te wai o te taone hoki ko stormwater. He tā te kōrero, kia kaha, kia maia, kia Manawanui. Thank you all for making me welcome here today. I am here to ask for small changes in the notified design of the Te Motu o Potoa pā civic marae, with the aim of making it better practice, best practice, in terms of stormwater design. And I am thinking not of the underground systems and the drain systems, but at that point where the rain hits the soil and affects our, and from the soil goes into the soil, buffers against drought, buffers against flooding, goes into plants, rather than going straight through the drains to the streets, to the awa, to the fish, to the tuna, to the sea. Because when it goes straight off our impermeable surfaces, like our streets, we're getting tire dust in there. We're getting microplastics in there, and that is going straight into our rivers and the health of our awa. And all of that pollution is going straight in there. Anytime we can make small interruptions from hard surfaces into our drains, we are uplifting the cleaning of the river. And for something as important as civic morai, I think that we can do a little better than was in the sketches or the architect drawings that were shared. Can you do the next one? So I wish to acknowledge the council is already on this path. This top photo, the main photo, is in Ashurst. And in the time that I've lived here in the last 20 years, that planting has been put in between the sports fields and the parking lots. And there are no raised edges, which means that water can flow into those plantings. And you'll see a little bridge in the background, and the drain is in that area. So that is a great design that council already knows how to do. We see also Chris Waipu's leadership in the subdivision in Hokafitu, where small changes allow water to flow into the soil and into a plant instead of straight into the storm drains. Is it working? Cool. I have these photos just as kind of a brain thought. Where's the water flowing in these? Some of them are not collecting water from hard surfaces, but some of these places are. I love this housing design on the left, where there's a tiny raised surface on the side facing a house, but if there's much water, it will still flow in. On the side by the wall, which is a barrier between the house paving and the city, there is a gap that allows all of the water to flow into the planting. This is probably just accidental, but these are two verges very near each other in the city. One is raised. All the water off that hard, dried, raised ground will flow straight into the drains. Whereas on the other side, where someone has planted some flax, probably to protect their property a little from the downhill, you've got the opportunity to catch water before it's going into the stormwater system. We're looking at putting a lot of money into upgrading our stormwater system in order to catch a lot more water. If we put it into the ground first and use that as a buffering system, we are at least saying that we're prepared as a city to do best practice at the point the water hits the ground, instead of just overloading everything and sending it straight to the river. The pingao, the yellow plant on top, is a very typical planting in our city, where you have that raised barrier. None of that is supporting a capture of your tire runoff. The bottom is a concept drawing. It's very similar to many plantings in the city, except for it goes down instead of going up. And that small difference is actually less concrete. You would think it would be less cost. And it's a very similar planting to what we're doing. This last one is from elsewhere, and I was just thinking, oh, you could take this basic rain garden design, those are rain gardens, because there's interruptions in the curbing, and you could move them into the center of the road, and then you'd have your cycle lanes on either side protected from cars. With respect to the civic morai, best practice need not mean that we have this showcase garden. This house, which is in our city, is just beautiful. There's actually a little stream running there. That is a beautiful showcase, landscape designed rain garden, and it's lovely to have some of those. That is one approach to best practice. Another approach to best practice is to say, we want to prove that this is something we can do everywhere at low cost. And so we're going to remove a few pavers, we're going to have a strip between walls, and we're going to have a few flax plants or a few sedges, or just these small interruptions that allow the water to not go straight into the drains. And that's all I'm asking. Interrupt the design in a few places so it doesn't go straight into the river and straight into our fish with all of that pollution that gathers on our hard surfaces. Tēnā koutou.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Are you open to questions? Councillors, have we got any questions? Oh, Councillor Isabel.
Kia ora, Sharon. Ngā mihi ki tō kōrua. I wondered if you had any views for the Civic Marae in terms of use of impermeable versus permeable surfacing, hard surfacing. There is a lot of paving in that design as well as the designs, and whether you had any views about what sort of materials we should be using.
I'm not qualified to answer that in a technical way. My view is that we should have strips between the places where people stand and the walls that are open and that have plantings for the water to run off. I am also conscious that these surfaces are going to be stood on, sometimes in fancy dress, you know, and that the shoes get slippery, and anything we can do to move the water off the surfaces is also going to be a safety matter for people.
Okay. Thank you. Ngā mihi.
Thank you, Sharon, for coming and speaking to us. That's all the questions we've got from councillors today. Your submission will be considered on the Wednesday the 4th of June as part of our deliberations and discussions on the Te Motu Opotoa item. Thank you very much for coming and speaking to us. Next up, we have Peter Butler, who's the Executive Manager of the Highbury Whānau Centre, making a submission relating to the Te Motu Opotoa governance options. Thank you, Peter. You've got 10 minutes. If you'd like to allow time for questions at the end, you're most welcome to.
Okay. Tēnā tātou. I te tuatahi māku nei mihi ki a koe whai. Nā te mea I whakahuaki I koe tō kōrero I tā tātou nei reo rangatira, no koe mihi nui. Tātou nei piri nei ki tēnei tepu. He mihi tēnei ki a tātou. I a koe te turu, he mihi tēnei hoki I a koe. Ko ai tēnei noho ana ki tēnei tepu, he uri no Ngāti Kaupata tūwhare tō me mokai pāti hoki tēnā tātou. We've been in a political whirlwind, and the number of submissions that I've had to do over the last couple of months has been horrendous. So can you please correct me on my memory? Are we talking about the governance of... Okay. So from my perspective, the governance should sit with mana whenua. It is not anyone's responsibility. That is a wahi tapu. Mana whenua should have full control on governing that. If they invite a partnership with the city, I think it is their prerogative to do that. If they want to go into co-governance, kei a rātou te tikanga. If they want the city to manage that and governance that, that's up to them. Rangitane have, for multiple years, have been a huge advantage to the city. They have been a respectable partner in many projects. I do not see any problems in that. I actually feel that giving them the ability to manage and host mana over that project would be a project that the city, the interesting thing about the City Council, from my perspective, has been proactive in multiple streams for a long period of time. They are world leaders. The city is a world leader in working with community, working with iwi, and this is another example where we could lead as a city and provide mana whenua with full governance of that project. That's from my perspective. So, happy to receive questions. I've got another list of things of the benefits of it, but it's not really about the kaupapa. So.
Thank you, Peter. Have we got any questions from councillors? Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and tēnā koe. I have some sympathy for your point of view because I had a similar point of view, but have you spoken to Rangitane about what they would like?
No, it's not, and this is the other point of it. It is, I find it a little bit uneasy that I have to make a submission to say that actually Rangitane should have this the say. Actually, it's not even my business, really. It should be, although there's an opportunity to have a perspective, as I am taurihiri to here, I've lived all my life under the protection of Rangitane in this rohe. I feel that my schooling here, being manakied and looked after by the haukainga, has enabled me and the work that I do to flourish. I have no problem with the way Rangitane manages projects. We are in partnership with a couple of things that we do in the community with Rangitane. I have no problem with Rangitane developing that. I've never mentioned this submission to them. I just thought it was an apt opportunity to re-emphasise the point that because of the Wahi Tapu, because of its potential benefits and promoting both the marae and the cultural centre, that full governance should sit with Rangitane. Rangitane, if they decide that they want to do it in partnership with the city, that's up to them. So.
Okay, thank you for that, Kia ora.
The Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Good to see you, Pete. Thank you for your submission. I'm sure you're aware, but no, it is a joint venture, how we've structured it to date around the building of it, or the potential building of it, and the capital raising, etc. So it's already sort of a joint venture to date. Do you not think that would be proactive to include everybody? And I take all your views, your comments on board, that the city was still involved in some way?
I think that potentially, depending on what the extension of, like, for example, anything related to the marae or cultural aspects of the facility should sit with the Haukainas, Rangitane.
I don't think there's any disagreement there.
Anything broader than that, then obviously, and I'm from experience working with Rangitane, they are open at working with others, and more so than I would see with other iwi. So I have no problems with having the ability to be able to navigate and negotiate with Rangitane. If the city wants to be involved, obviously the representatives, as you say, it's a co-governance process at the moment. That's great. And I would like that is promoted in a way across the country to show other people outside of the city that actually doing things in partnership with iwi is the best way forward.
Okay.
So, yeah, and obviously the city is going to put some resources into it, so that should sit with those who sit at the table and look after it from there. And then, you know, obviously it's navigating and doing that with Rangitane. And as you know, Grant, you've done that for a long time, and well, I've seen that, and this council has. So, yeah, I think it's positive for the city.
Okay. And are the Warriors going to win this year?
I'm on the fence sitter with the Warriors. I go Warriors with a no, and because my heart's been broken so many times. So, yeah.
Up the wires. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Peter. We'll see what we can do about that now.
Again one day.
We'll see what we can do about that in our deliberations. As per the previous submission, yours will be heard on or be considered on Wednesday the 4th of June alongside everything else. Thank you for coming and speaking to us today. Before you go, I'll just pass over the Deputy Mayor for a moment.
Tēnā tātou, ka tika tō ropi, me mehi atu kia korua ko whae Sharon. Nā tēnā koe whae Sharon, nau anō I tai mai, I runga I te manawa nui mo Papa Tuanuku, nau I tuku o whakaaro rangatira ki a tātou, ka tika hoki, ka mihi, ka rerenga mihi ki a koe, e te mokopuna, e te manawahine o Ngāti Raukawa, tēnā koe. Ka mihi au ki a koe, Peter, te mokopuna o Ngāti Kauwhata o Tūwharetoa, he hononga tātāua mo Tūwharetoa, hoki no reira, ka reri taku mihi ki a koe mā tō mahi rangatira, I roto I tēnei taone, I roto I te hāpori. Ko tēnei taku mihi mai a mātou ki a kōrua, I tai mai I runga I te whakaaro Māori, I runga I te kaupapa, ngā kaupapa, whakahirahira hei oranga mo tō tātou iwi. Nō reira, tēnā kōrua. Just by way of explanation, whānau, just to say that in this side, I'm responding to the wonderful Māori worldview that both Sharon and also Peter had brought to the table today, and it would be remiss of me not to respond appropriately in Te Reo Māori, and you saw Peter eloquently say that to Sharon, so I'm responding as well and saying thank you to them in accordance with Māori tikanga for their perspectives and for being here. Nō reira, ka te aki rai konei, tēnā kōrua, Tēnā tātou. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe whai.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Peter. Next, we have from Palmerston North Boys High School, David Bovey, the Rector, and Stuart Layton to come speak to us regarding their submission to the annual budget. For David and Stuart, we have 10 minutes available for you, and you're welcome to leave time for questions at the end. And for Stuart, it's the right-hand button to put your microphone on.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you very much for hearing us today. So you will have read the submission. Just to put it into context for those of you who aren't familiar with Palmerston North Boys High School, we're the largest state school in the lower half of the North Island. We have 1,831 pupils at the school, 47% of whom are New Zealand European, 28% are Māori or Pacifica, and we have the speakers of 59 different languages attending the school. So there's a huge amount of diversity at the school. We are looking at improving our sporting facilities. We've got some fantastic facilities for the performing arts, and we've already heard the Spear Centre mentioned in a conversation this morning. So the Spear Centre is a performing arts facility at the school. We have close to 800 young men involved in the performing arts or cultural programs, and that's ranging across Pacifica and Kapahaka groups, choral groups, orchestras, bands, and so on. We have close to 200 young men who are having music lessons as part of the itinerant program. Our sporting facilities, however, are fairly poor by comparison. We're bucking the national trend. We had 1,944 young men put their name down to be involved in sport. Last year it was 19% increase on the previous year, and I guess if you can work that out, that means we have a number of young men who are playing more than one code. It's really important that our young men remain physically active. We know that at Year 12, for example, young men who are involved in our co-curricular program achieve on average 31 more NCEA credits than those who aren't, and their attendance is close to 14% better for those who are engaged in those programs. What we're looking at is a hockey turf, but it's not just a hockey turf. It's a facility that can be used for all the boys, particularly if those of you who've ever been at the school during the winter and have seen the state of our fields. We need some spaces that the boys can use when it's wet. So it's not just the hockey players who would get to use this, it would be all the boys at school who are involved in PE or any sort of winter sport. Hockey has sort of priced itself out of the market. The turf fees are about $280, and we have a number of boys who simply can't afford to play not only hockey, but we're trying to remove the barriers for all of our boys to be involved in something, whether it be basketball. We had 44 basketball teams last year as an example, but by building this turf, we're hoping it will be a community turf, and so not just for use for our boys, but also for clubs in the community, also local schools. So we currently have a program with QEC where we share their fields. They're also part of our senior construction course, so we have pupils from QEC coming over helping us build houses, and they're working on that program as well. So it's something that I can see will be a real benefit to the community. We have letters of support from Manawatu Hockey and from New Zealand Hockey. Manawatu Hockey in particular believe that an extra turf in the city will be of a significant benefit for them to be able to host regional and national tournaments, and that would certainly be something we'd be very keen to support. Right, any questions?
Thank you. Anything from you, Stu, before we go into questions? No. Excellent. Just one from me to get started. I just wanted to ask how the Ministry of Education fits into all of this. Are they engaged
Not
with
at
the
all.
project?
Not at all.
Is there a particular reason for that?
They just, no, well, they will only give money for 5YA or 10YP projects. In other words, for school classrooms and that sort of thing, and these sorts of facilities don't fit into that at all, so the ministry won't give us anything. In fact, they might not even give us permission. But let's see how we go.
Thank you. Councillor Hapeta.
That was a scurrilous question, because you already knew the answer to that, Willie.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you, David and Stuart. Right, just questions around fundraising. I can see you've gone to quite a few places for fundraising. Have you gone externally to other parties across New Zealand for funds?
We have, and the advice we've been given is that they would like to come on board when we're closer to the target. They want to support us, I guess, when we've got 60 or 70% of it and help us get across the line rather than come in when we've only just started.
And you've got 40,000 sitting there for plans and consents. Is that an estimate or an actual?
That's an estimate.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, David and Stu. So just on Councillor Harper's question, so how much have you raised and how much have you raised in total for the turf
For
today?
the project overall of the turf?
Yeah.
So far we've just clicked over 1 million.
Right.
And the turf itself, we're looking at 2.2.
Okay.
The pavilion, which is part of the wider
Yep.
sports hub, is another 4.8.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Ted and Stuart. My question is really around community availability of venues and facilities at Boys High. Probably have a little bit more familiarity with the Spears Centre and kind of access for community there, but can you give us kind of an overall picture of your philosophy around community access to that, and then kind of break it down into kind of the arts facilities, existing sports facilities, and then potential new sports facilities?
Sure. Look, we've got the community use the Spears Centre quite regularly. We also have well, it's called the new gym, but it's getting fairly ancient. But the new gym is used by a number of community groups, as is the swimming pool. The way we envisage the hockey turf working is that during school hours, probably up till about 5:30, it will be for school use, but if other schools want to come and use it for training, we're happy to do that. And then outside of those hours, we'd invite community use. So from 5:30 perhaps through till 9:30 at night.
Thanks. So if I've heard that right, then it's kind of a priority of Boys High, then other schools, then broader community.
Well, I guess the other schools would fit into the broader community side of things.
Okay.
But there's always flexibility around that as well. If there are community tournaments perhaps during school time, then that will take precedence.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Stu, for coming and speaking to us today. And as per our previous submissions, those will be considered in our deliberations on the annual budget on the 14th of May, with a final budget decision being made on the 4th of June. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next matter we have today is Sheridan Hickey speaking to her submission on the annual budget. Sheridan, as the previous speakers, you have 10 minutes, but you're welcome to leave time for questions at the end. The floor is yours.
Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Sheridan Hickey, and I am speaking in support of the Centrepoint submission that they've put in. And I just want to speak from a personal point of view, the fact that Centrepoint has been in our community for over 50 years. It was established by people, by Palmerstonians, among them the names like the Fleggs, McKeggs, Professor Keith Thompson, and quite a number of others. Initially starting out on George Street, from the time it began, it has actually been a very community-focused theatre, even though it's a professional theatre. It has never been one of those theatres where you have to be seen to be at the theatre and creating a bum on seat just so they can get ticket sales. It has always been a valuable part of our community, and that was part of the reason why it was established, apart from having professionals, giving them a chance beyond the major cities. And theatre is multifaceted, from those of you who are involved in that, apart from running the business side of things. Centrepoint's program has always been provided opportunities. It's been a springboard for a number of our professional actors, playwrights, who are from this local area, Manawatu, Palmerston North, and it's been a springboard for them who've gone on not just nationally, but internationally. And some of those, for example, Carrie Green is one of the more recent ones, and the likes of Regan Taylor, Jamie McCaskill, Kane Parsons, who have had that as a venue, but they keep coming back. But they keep their repertoire extends, and we benefit as a city from that. And we've also had Centrepoint telling our own stories. Right from the outset, it was evident that they wanted to support not just New Zealand stories, but our stories. David Geary, for one, who went to Boys High, is now an internationally renowned playwright and is on a fellowship at the moment in Canada. He keeps coming back home. He keeps writing plays, not just for us, but for our country, and also those stories are being told internationally as well. So we don't realise how much impact that little physical theatre has in a much wider radius throughout the world. Examples of telling our stories, from the outset, there was a philosophy when they moved from George Street into where they are now, was to get the community into the theatre as well, to share those stories. And some of you will remember the choir, when they had a different community choir every night from Palmerston North Manawatu communities. There was even a Midsummer Night's Dream with community players, and Peter Hall was playing bottom, for those of you who could remember that. One of the outstanding things was the fact that Tim Finn wrote a musical, and he chose to have it premiered at Centrepoint. And his set designer was Shane Cotton. Now, when you get Tim Finn, for those of you who are of an age who may not know, one of the founders of Split Ends, and Shane Cotton, one of New Zealand's greatest artists who's from this area, and that was a collaboration between them, but also the community, because the likes of Kane Parsons and those young ones were involved as well because of their musical input and support. There's always been an outreach program from Centrepoint going out to schools, and I know that even Boys High has benefited from those programs and are still benefiting. And so taking it from the perspective of English drama teachers at schools, it's giving young people an opportunity to develop skills through theatre, sports, improvisation, and there's wider programs as well with the Basement Company, which is an ongoing program for young people from the secondary schools, and that's been going for quite a number of years now. The Attic program is now also established. Attic is opposite of Basement, so instead of having the young upcoming people, we've now got people at the other end of the scale, and I have spoken to the, or the CEO of Age Concern has spoken to me, and he sees it as being a very vital engagement with those people, and quite a number of them are participating in that program. There's also the various cultural outreach programs going out to the different communities within our Palmerston North community. And there's, for example, Pacifica Disabilities, there's too many to name. And through all of this involvement, Centrepoint was really a national leader, if not wider than that, during COVID. They still engaged their audience, and one way they did that was to actually invite people, budding playwrights, to write scripts, to write plays, and they got professional mentors for those people, New Zealand, top professional directors, playwrights, what have you, to work with these people online to develop scripts. But then they took it a step further. They then invited the public to come in, and on one day, they would be given a script that have a professional director working with them, so it's extending their skills if they're interested in theatre, but just participating, and they would then perform that short play. So that's a whole process, so that it's not just the actors on stage or the front of house people. Centrepoint's contribution to our community in Palmerston North has been far wider. And if you speak to a lot of people, you'll find that they've been part of a program at one stage or another coming through. So that's why I would like to support their submission. I know there are other important things like footpaths and water and all those sorts of things, and there's only so much to go around, but I think we also need to think of how theatre or any performing arts can actually make people feel better, and it feels if the place has a vibrancy. Nō reira. Tēnā koutou.
Thank you, Sheridan. Are you happy to take any questions?
I'm prepared to take questions.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Sheridan, for your passionate advocacy for our arts sector over many years. In your submission, you talked about the changing world that we live in, and particularly you were speaking about tertiary sector changes. You highlighted Massey. There have been similar changes at UCOL. If you were to project that into a Palmerston North where we also don't have Centrepoint, what would be the impact on our community?
There'd be a very black hole, to put it bluntly. I had grandparents who were in the entertainment industry, mainly in singing, dancing, and during the Depression, they played the piano, they organised community events, so everyone could come along, you know, people would bring plates and bottles, and they would share, they have a really good time, even though times were really tough. If you take somewhere away like Centrepoint, it's not just the wider community that would have that impact, it is also the other little non-professional community theatre groups around the place. That because of Centrepoint, it actually raises the impact and the standard and engagement of everybody. I don't know if I answered that correctly, but it's like got tentacles everywhere. But performing arts are vital, regardless whether it's music, singing, dance. Apart from energising, getting lots more oxygen into your lungs and around your blood system, you actually are physically and mentally much more aware and enjoy. So you've got to keep that vibrancy going. I'm not even talking about the business side, because that's another factor as well. You think of the professionals that come in and they've got to have somewhere to stay. So that's accommodation if they're here for a 6-week season plus the rehearsal time. You know, so there's all of those things that come into it that I can only surmise.
Thank you, Sheridan. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Naylor.
Thanks, Sheridan. Just in terms of the cost of living crisis that we're in at the moment, how much of our community do you think wouldn't be able to afford a ticket to Centrepoint?
I'm not here talking about the financial aspect of it, but Centrepoint does need to be supported as far as I'm concerned because of the value that they add to our city. And one of the major factors that if I know that this is from my JP work, a lot of people are coming to Palmerston North to work from out of other parts of New Zealand and also from overseas. And one of the factors, and this is just coincidental, is because of the feeling they have in the city, because it's got a professional theatre, it's got a large theatre where community productions can be held, and it's got a wonderful art gallery and museum, and all those factors are what entice people. They might not get as paid as much here as they would if they were somewhere else in the world, but they want to come here, and that's part of that factor. And I can't argue that in financial or fiscal terms. I'm sorry.
Okay, perhaps to rephrase the question a little bit differently. If ratepayers are to invest in Centrepoint, do you think that Centrepoint should be accessible to all of our community?
Well, they would like to think that could be accessible to all our community because it's got physical access for a start for people with disabilities, but cost-wise, they do try to keep their costs at a reasonable level for communities, and they do have a season price that's even lower. So, but I'm not privy to that. I'm not on their board, so I don't know those things.
Thank you.
I'm just talking about a member of the community.
Yeah, lovely, thank you.
What I see the impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheridan. Unfortunately, that's all the time we've got available today, so thank you very much for coming and speaking to us. And as per the previous submissions, yours will be considered in our deliberations on the 14th of May, with a decision on the 4th of June. Next we have, coming to us online, we have Mads speaking to the Environment Network Manawatu submission to the annual budget. The floor is yours, Mads, when you're ready.
Kia ora. Thank you. Sorry, I can't see you. I'm not sure quite who the chair is. Kia ora. koutou, ko Mads ko ingoa. I'm from Environment Network Manawatu, and I'm here to speak to our submission today. I just want to acknowledge the speakers that have been before. I found you all really interesting, and in particular, the submissions from Sharon and Pete were both really on point, and it's really great to hear those voices coming strong. So our submission is, we've got a couple of areas that we obviously support in the annual budget. We're really pleased to see the ongoing support for community work. I think that Palmerston City Council can be applauded for its strength in supporting community, and despite potential setbacks, there are, I think you have really seen the value in supporting community works. So grateful to see that continues, and things like the last submission around Centrepoint really shows the value of that support for community efforts. But I do want to get to the kind of issues at hand in terms of our concern from our members. Our members are concerned about the pullback of funding for safe cycleways or shared pathways, you might call them. I understand that there's been, political moves which mean that it makes it difficult to continue those pieces of work as per the original plan. But it would be really good to see the cities of those projects, or the city's portion of that investment, be continued. And to have just a rethink on how we can make our city safer to cycle and to walk, and in particular to cycle on the roads, and to create pathways that are safe for people. I know that there's been pushback from the public around the uncompleted Edison Street section, but there has been an increase in safe cycle pathways for the part that has been completed. If that was able to be completed, which I understand isn't a possibility, but if that was, that would have been a really great asset and would have seen even more increased use of it. When I first moved to Palmerston North in 1995, as a young student, I remember seeing Boys High students in the hundreds biking out of Palmerston Boys High and across town, up through Fitzherbert Ave, across the square, and all of the way out towards all over the city. So it is possible, but at the moment that has changed, has been a complete turnaround in the last 30 years. I'd like to see it come back, and so would our members. So there are things that we think that the City Council can do. We've mentioned in our submission the Greasy Chain Trust and also Robert McLaughlin's submissions. Both of them bring some really good ideas for that, and E&M supports that. So that's all I really want to say. Oh, I am open to questions.
Thank you very much, Mads. You're happy to take questions, you said?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Mads, for your submission on behalf of E&M. Just wanted to pick up the points around lack of investment or cuts of investment in active transport, which we're also experiencing in public transport as well, and appreciated your submission and you speaking to it. What I'd like to get a sense of is whether within the discussions with E&M there's views in terms of where the precious few dollars that we could make available should next go. And so I'm kind of thinking about broad categories around, say, public transport and bus shelters versus existing footpaths versus urban bike lanes versus shared paths to other communities. Because at the moment, we've got to cut across the lot. Is there a conversation within E&M about kind of where the highest priority sits in that space?
I guess the short answer is no. Obviously, we would like to see them all done, and I assume that you would too, Brent. But but I think I think what needs to happen is a creative look at, like, we've got this much set aside. What's happened, in my understanding, is there was in the long-term plan $7 million set aside to do some shared pathway work, potentially some other things that you've talked to, but that has been cut completely. So why not? Because the co-funding has been dropped, so we can't do all of those projects. Why not look at that $7 million and go, what can we do with $7 million and what is the best use of it? And then do that. So, rather than cutting it out completely. I would like to see at least some more of the safe cycleway path, the urban pathways to be made. So to try and connect up some of those kind of blips that we've got within the city. So we've got a blip of Featherston Street that's just been done. How does it connect with other parts of the cycle network? We've got a great cycle network from Awapuni-ish to Massey, for instance. How do these things connect so that it's safe to go from anywhere in the city to somewhere else? Obviously not this year, but in the long term.
Thanks, Mads. Appreciate that point around connectivity, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. That's all the questions we have in our list today. So thank you very much for taking the time to come and speak to us. And as I've said to our previous submitters, your submission will be considered on the 14th of May for our deliberations with a decision on the 4th of June. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you.
I'd now like to call on our next submitter, Frank Coenders, to make his submission on the long-term, apologies, the annual budget. Frank, as per the previous speakers, you've got 10 minutes and you're welcome to leave time for questions at the end. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, elected councillors and officials, kia ora tātou, ko Frank Coenders aho. My submission is an individual submission regarding my property at 591 Kelvin Grove Road, which I own. I'd just like to say, firstly, in 2018, the land on my property was valued at $420,000. In 2021, QV valued that land at $1.575 million. That was nearly a fourfold increase in value. This resulted in a 91% increase in my rates in 2021. So I guess my first point is that I believe that the rating based on land values is patently unfair for two reasons. Firstly, on my side of the road in Kelvin Grove Road, the land is subdividable. On the other side of the road, it's not. Consequently, my land is valued at $1.575 million today still. And across the road, a piece of land which is 50% larger, is valued at $760,000. Consequently, the rates are substantially less. If I was to buy my property today, or if I was to attempt to buy my property today at its current value, I couldn't afford to pay for that. It's nowhere near what I paid for it. That property was developed by my parents. They bought it some 50 years ago, the land. My father was a builder. He built the house on it. He was a Dutch immigrant. It was his dream. He was very keen for me to take over the property when he passed. He passed in 2015, and hence I bought the property off his estate. So it means a lot to me, that property. I don't have it as an investment. It's a roof over my head. It's my spiritual home. It's my tūranga waiwai. And in recent times, and this particular year, the council has advised me that my rates will be going up by a further 38%. So that will take the rates, my rates will have increased by 236% in the last 4 years, from approximately $2,200 to $7,500.
At the current rates and the insurance I pay on the property, I'm a retired person, my rates and insurance take all of my superannuation. I'm fortunate I do have another income. I'm not impoverished, and I don't wish to seek a rebate because I think there are others that are more deserving than I. However, I do believe that there is an unfairness in the system. I know of properties in my area, people have built recently for properties coming up to the same value as my property that are paying much less than half the rates that I'm paying. So, you know, I guess the point that I'm making at the end of the day, I believe that rates should be based 100% on capital value rather than land value. And I believe that would take a lot of these major fluctuations in values or major fluctuations in rates out of the system. My second point concerns the 7.7% increase in rates for the coming year on average. I'd just like to make the point that, you know, in my living memory, rates have gone up by substantially more than the rate of inflation in just about every year that I can recall. This year we're looking at roughly 5% above the rate of inflation. That means that rates as a proportion of the average income will double every 14.4 years. So there's a social aspect of this as well, affordability. And finally, you know, my point regarding the water issue, you know, we're looking at possibly at least another $1,000 hit on our rates, or water rates anyway, in the coming years, over and above the increases that we normally get. So that's going to be a big hit on ratepayers as well. So that's really the extent of my submission. So thank you for your time. I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much, Frank. Councillor Naylor.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. The second part of your submission that refers to the increase, you know, should be around 2.2%, the rate of inflation. That 5% difference is around about 7 million that we'd need to reduce to achieve that. What services or projects would you be willing to have reduced or removed in order for us to achieve that sort of more reasonable rates increase?
Well, I don't have any, I don't want to mention any specific. I believe there are projects that can be deferred. I think we're going through a difficult time at the moment in terms of, particularly with the water issues, and also inflation and affordability generally in the economy. And I think there are things that can be deferred.
So in general, as well as deferring things, would you be willing to accept a reduction in the level of service that we provide currently?
Yes, I would personally, yeah.
You would? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Frank, for coming in. I just want to try and understand why you've got a 38% increase this year based on last year. Is that because of the reduction, or rather the increase in the proportion of rates paid by rural properties? Is yours a rural residential?
Mine is a rural property, yes.
So,
I pointed that out, yes.
Right. So that's the reason for the 38%, is it? It's not a valuation
so,
change?
Yes. I believe so. I believe that the councillors, or I have read that rural properties are being asked to pay a greater proportion of the rates than what they have in the past.
Okay.
And I don't know why that is.
We have had other submissions along the same lines about the significant increase for rural properties. Do you have a solution that you would like us to look at to mitigate that increase for the rural properties?
Well, as I said, I'm not sure why we're being discounted. I don't have an answer to that question. All I can say is that as a rural ratepayer, you know, we don't have the services that that many of the ratepayers in the city have, such as water and roading and footpaths and the like. I believe that we should have a discount because we don't have those services. Why that discount is being reduced, I have no idea.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Frank. Couple questions, if I might. The first one's really around the central part of your submission around reducing the rates to the rate of inflation. And just wondered how you would rate the overall state of infrastructure in the city compared to your expectations for infrastructure in the city?
I think this is a great city. I love the city. I was born here, raised here. I moved away when I was 18 to go to university. I didn't come back till I was 51. And I've lived here again for 18 years. And coming back, I saw the city in a different light. And I love it. I wouldn't move. This is my home. I applaud the council for the work they've done in the amenities and the public access areas. I think they're wonderful.
So if the $7 million, as Councillor Naylor's indicated, contributed to continue wear and tear on roads, et cetera, that wouldn't be repaired for that much longer, or wouldn't be improved for that much longer, you'd be comfortable to see?
My view is that the council should be concentrating its efforts on core services, which I think is roading, rubbish, water, so on and so forth.
Right.
I think there are projects, I use the term vanity projects, that I think we could probably defer and make do with what we've got.
Great, thank you. The second line of questions
Apologies
I
to
had.
interrupt, Councillor. Unfortunately, that's all the time we've got today. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Frank, for coming and submitting to us. And as I've mentioned to the previous speakers, that'll be discussed in our deliberation on the 14th of May, the decision on the 4th of June. And apologies, Councillor Barrett, for interrupting your questions. We'll now move to our next presentation, which is from Mitch Murdoch, the Director of the Massey University Foundation, and Vaughan Simmons, who I believe is a Professor at Massey. As I've mentioned to previous speakers, you've got 10 minutes to make your presentation. You're welcome to leave time for questions at the end. And for Vaughan sitting on the left, it's the right-hand button if you want to turn your microphone on. The floor is yours.
Good. Ina iwi ina mana, ina rangatira mai, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou. On behalf of myself and my colleague, Vaughan Simons, thank you very much for having us here today. It feels just like yesterday that I was here presenting to council. So fortunately for all of you, I've brought my colleague Vaughan with me, so you can hear a little bit from him and you don't have to hear so much from me. Vaughan's just going to talk you through some of the virtues of Te Waimana o Turitea, our research park and garden, and then we will have a quick chat about how the council could support that project a little bit more. So Vaughan, I'll hand over to you on that note.
Kia ora koutou, and thank you again for having us here today. Excuse my voice, it's coming and going. I just want to talk for a few minutes about Te Waimana o Turitea, which we think can be viewed as a living bridge between education, community, and the environment. We see this as a place where researchers study and implement environmental sustainability side by side with school children learning how bees pollinate plants, and where the community learns how to grow their own food. Where local families take walks among native plants, students of all ages conduct hands-on research, and the community comes together for seasonal festivals and sustainability workshops. This is the vision of a joint university community garden space, equal parts research center, public garden, outdoor classroom, and cultural gathering space. Why do we think this is worthwhile? Excuse me. First, education. This garden would be a year-round living lab. It would provide unparalleled facilities for university research across a wide range of disciplines, including ecology, zoology, horticulture, social studies, and community health, while also offering opportunities for primary and secondary school field trips, workshops for home gardeners, and inspiration for artists. Second, environmental impact. As cities confront climate challenges, this garden can lead by example, showcasing ecological restoration developments, waterway rehabilitation initiatives, and green infrastructure. It becomes a model of urban ecological health while also improving our water quality and supporting biodiversity. Third, community well-being. Green spaces are proven to reduce stress, build social connections, and promote physical activity. A community-centered garden would offer walking paths, quiet spaces, event venues, and volunteer opportunities, making it a gathering place that's inclusive, intergenerational, and welcoming to all. Fourth, economic vitality. Community gardens such as this attract visitors. They bring them into town. They enhance property values, support local food systems, and create interest and ultimately jobs in education, conservation, and horticulture. And finally, this project represents a deeper value, collaboration. It's a chance for the university, Rangatane, and the city to co-create something meaningful, combining academic insight with community knowledge and turning shared values into shared stewardship. This isn't just a garden, it's an investment in learning, community, sustainability, health, and connection. And we're here to ask for your support in making this vision a shared reality.
Thanks, Vaughan. When we spoke to council in March, there was a concern from some that $1 million over 3 years might be a little too rich for ratepayers to bear. We've listened to that and we have reduced our requests in the current submission that you have in front of you here today. But we sincerely believe that this project supports the work of other council projects and it is highly supported by others in our community. In fact, it was very interesting to hear the submission from Safe Cycleways today because, again, if you're looking to add on to the cycleways and cycle tracks that we have, here's a really good, cost-effective way to do it. This park actually will be unique to the Manawatu. We think it will attract visitors and it will ensure the health of our awa, our community and our university. We believe that other donors will value PNCC's input and I think it goes a long way when we can say that PNCC is supportive of a project. We've really enjoyed working collaboratively with PNCC before through the foundation and we'd love to do it again. So we're really appealing to you to give this project the support. I think in terms of the long-term strategic plan for the city, this sits very well and it helps to create a really attractive city and a really wonderful place for people to live as we go forward. That's us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are you happy to take questions?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. You mentioned you're asking for a reduced amount. I can't see that in your submission. What's the amount that you're asking now?
It's right at the end. Save the best till
okay.
last. We just put 300,000 in there at this point in time.
What's that?
300, yeah.
Okay.
We'd love we'd love a larger sum, but we understand the constraints that council works under.
Just given we've had many submissions expressing hardship that the 7.7% would mean for many of our ratepayers. And it was clarified when you came to committee that that would have to be an operational expense rather than we couldn't borrow for it, obviously. How would you justify to ratepayers who are struggling already with the 7.7, how would you justify that if you were in our position, adding 300,000 to what is already quite a significant increase?
I actually think that there are a lot of and we're obviously all ratepayers sitting around this table here today, but I think a lot of ratepayers do look to the future and understand that this, the recession won't last forever, although it hurts right now, but also that in the future of our city that we have to build things for the future and for our children and our grandchildren, and developing these gardens and paths supports that. It also supports the long-term financial health of this city, and I think that's a really key thing that we need to look at because Massey University, as you know, higher education across New Zealand has struggled over the last few years. This is designed to be a literal pathway into education and to showcase our university as well, and ensuring the health of that university is really important to the health of the city. So, I think it's about return on investment and looking beyond the immediate gains to other things that sit in there for ratepayers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I might just ask one question here. So I've spoken to a number of people about your proposal since you last spoke to us in Chamber, and nobody's been opposed to it. Everybody thinks it's a very good idea. But the question that keeps coming to me is, how does it cost $10 million to build a boardwalk and pathway and some community gardens? So I thought I'd put that to you here to get a better understanding of
how you've come to that figure and what goes into making up that $10 million.
So we've had QS reports that have come back with that. So that's the filtration zone section of the garden. I'm getting a second QS now, and that is a bells and whistles version of the garden. I think if we can get to 3.5 million, I can put put one path through and one platform in, and I think that's enough to start us. I think this is the kind of project that will grow legs and run once it's started. I think that it's the sort of thing where Massey will receive from a lot of its alumni bequests and ongoing support for a project like this. And I think for our city, some of the elements of the garden at the Treetop Walkway especially, I think could be hugely attractive as a tourist attraction into the city. And I think once people see the first leg done, it's always the same. Nobody wants to be the first person in, and once they see the first bit done, people get very excited. So I think it will grow legs and run. But yeah, there has been a QS done on it, but I have gone through that QS and I trimmed it. I think we can do it for less, and I'm getting a second QS report in now.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Mitch. Just wanted to understand what the Foundation's perspective would be if council were to make a funding commitment contingent on other funds being raised, and that the council funds wouldn't be unlocked until such time as another amount was raised. Would that change the environment for you in terms of fundraising?
No, I don't think so. I think that's fine. As long as I can put into letters that the City Council is supportive and has pledged this money when we reach a certain point, I think that would be really helpful.
Thank you.
The Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Vaughan and Mitch, for coming in. Community access. I mean, we've heard from some other submitters on other projects, and they stress the community access side of it to try and unlock some civic support. Would that be the case with this project as well?
Absolutely, and so the access is free, direct, and the first section that we want to complete, the filtration zone, comes off the Urban Eels platform and will create a walkway, and I think it'll get huge use by the community. I think as soon as we put that path through, Vaughan and I have talked about this, I think you're going to get people just running through that area. Yeah. So, and that is exactly what we want. We want people being drawn into that space, seeing the work and the research that Massey does, coming onto Massey land and seeing what Massey does.
Yeah, and like other city projects that we have actually been partners with, Athletics Track, Sport and Rugby Institute, Refectory, you'd see it sort of working in the same way, where the city sort of is acknowledged in some way as being a partner in that?
Absolutely. I'm always so thrilled to acknowledge PNCC. I think the relationship between Massey and the City Council, which goes right back to the beginnings of Massey, is often underestimated. And as with the refectory building, we have the PNCC foyer, and we're really proud to have that there, because I think it's really important that we work together. Right. And I would add, adding with Rangatani too, who've been fantastic to work with on this project and have been so helpful to us and so supportive. So we've enjoyed that too. It's been great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. That's unfortunately all we have time for today, but thank you very much for taking the time to come and speak to your submission. And as per the previous submitters, we have deliberations on the 14th of May with a decision on the 4th of June.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now have our last submitter for this session, Denise Gray, to speak to her submission on the annual budget. Denise, you have 10 minutes and you're welcome to leave time for questions at the end.
Okay, thank you.
And the right-hand button is the button to turn your microphone on.
Just come off a little bit further. Hi, kia ora, I'm Denise, and thank you for this opportunity to speak my annual budget submission. Thank you to the councillors that met up with myself and my friend Jo recently. And excuse me, also thank you to the councillors who, in my opinion, have been using our ratepayers' money wisely. Where's the money? We've paid rates to cover what's coming up. For example, water upgrades possibly next year. Where's the money that's been put aside for this? We can't go back, but money's been spent on wants and not needs. I'll tell you where some of it's gone. On council staff not doing their jobs. In my street, I have 2 friends who've been let down by the council. I came in and met with the council employee 2 years ago about making a footpath safer for my friend. So it's where the footpath meets the road. She's in a heavy wheelchair, which overturned and she was stranded in the gutter. I passed on her details and nothing's happened. That's 2 years ago. This is outside her house where she lives. She lives in a council flat. Another friend had her wee dog mauled, luckily still alive, by 2 large dogs recently. Nothing's been done. They still run off their leads in the street and the children's playground. A council staff member rang her recently and said, "How are you doing?" She said, "Well, I'd feel a lot better if the council actually imposed the bylaws. But wait, there's more. The same dog's then attacked another dog and its owner. The dogs are still around." I've got 3 more examples, but two is plenty. The council's debt is over 300 million. Sell something. Sell one of the many buildings or some land. We've paid our rates. Why is it constantly coming back on ratepayers? Why is there 96 buildings? Some people can't afford to feed their kids. Where's the money? The councillors are voted in by ratepayers. Some ratepayers I know are saying that the council and councillors are out of touch. I felt like some councillors basically ignored the 3,000 signatures collected in just a few weeks to stop and reverse Featherston Street's upgrade. To me, it's smart city nonsense, but still it continued, and another $500,000 was agreed for safety upgrades. Where's the money? Look, the council does many great things, and the rates rebate through the government is amazing for low-income people. But please hear me when I suggest it's not forever, no to new buildings. Pay off the debt. Don't ask ratepayers for further rates for water upgrades. People will lose their homes because of continued rate increases. Excuse me. While I was writing out this yesterday, some song lyrics came to my mind from a New Zealand singer and songwriter. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing. And it goes, "If the water's only ankle deep, then why are we still drowning?" Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Are you happy to take any questions?
I am.
Seeing we have, oh no, apologies, Councillor Zabellin.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in, Denise. We have got in the budget for future years some proactive debt repayment that's additional to the scheduled debt repayment we would do. Is that something that you would support us continuing to have in that budget?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Do you think we could do more of that, or do you think we need to be balancing that based on?
I think we need to do more. You know, you're carrying such a huge debt, and you can't sustain that. A household can't sustain that, so how can a council sustain that?
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Councillor Naylor.
Yeah, thanks, Denise. You've talked about not wanting money put into new buildings, and that's in reference to Tumatua Pautoa. Are you thinking that we shouldn't put money into the other buildings, such as the Arena 5 and the Pacifica new build?
It's really into the new buildings, like, for example, when there was talk about a new library being built, stuff like that. We've got enough buildings.
Okay.
We don't need new buildings. So I'm not anti that project. My grandfather was in World War I. I'm not anti that project, but I'm anti new stuff at the moment. Yeah.
And in terms of your concern around the cost of rates, apart from buildings, would you be willing for any sort of level of reduction of level of service to minimise the rates increase?
Well, that's why I suggested selling some buildings. Like, if people are struggling with their rates, why is there so many buildings? Why are there so many assets? That's where I'm coming from.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Denise. When you mentioned some buildings to sell, is there one that comes to mind that you could suggest that the value to the community doesn't hold, considering the debt that we carry?
No, I only know there's 96 buildings. That seems like a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
The Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Denise. I've got a few mixed messages there. You said something around no more rate increases for waters, yet you said we've got to focus on some of the basics. So how do you expect us to, do you have a solution on how we would do that if we're not going to put more cost into waters?
Well, it just feels like we've been paying our rates and we've been let down in some areas. And there should be more money in the kitty.
More money in the kitty for what?
Well, specifically towards the water.
The waters,
issues
okay.
that are coming up.
All right.
Yeah.
And in terms of your comments around debt and pay down all the debt, what do you call an acceptable level of debt?
Zero.
Zero?
Is there any councils in New Zealand, I don't know, that have no debt?
Not that I'm aware of.
Probably not. Well, why can't we be first?
Where we'd have a significant lower. I'm getting into comments, sorry, I'll leave it. Thank you, you've given me your answer, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Denise, for coming and making your submission. And as per our other submissions, yours will be considered on the 14th of May and then with a decision on the 4th of June. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillors, that brings us to the end of our second hearing session for today. I'd like to thank all of the members of the public who came and made submissions to us today. We greatly appreciate it, and they will all be taken into consideration for our discussions in May. We'll be adjourning now to our next session at 4 p.m, where Councillor Mark Arnott will be in the chair, and I'd invite councillors, we have a light lunch in the Guyong room, for those who